Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman. Hello and welcome listeners to episode 130 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. Now, in today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about whether a one-to-one session with a professional organizer is helpful. And this kind of whole discussion, Leslie, got triggered because this week is spring clearing week, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's spring clearing week of APDO. Yeah, so the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers in the UK have a kind of annual awareness week, don't they, called Spring Clearing Week. So it's spring clearing and not spring cleaning week. And that's this week. And so there's been a lot of chat, a lot of things going on this week to raise awareness, hasn't there, of the professional organising world in the UK specifically.
Yes, and of course, you and I have been very involved within APDO. We were in their board. I was president. You were, my right hand, weren't you, Leslie? We became good friends while we were both in the board. You were head of mentoring. We were both involved in training. We've trained hundreds of professional organizers here in the UK, haven't we? I mean, APDO is close to our heart.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we thought it was a good time to chat about what even is a professional organizer? What could you expect if you wanted to get one to help you in your own home, if that's a possibility? How is that different to going it alone, for example? How is that different to being part of the Declutter Hub, the free resources that we have, the paid membership that we have? How is that different? And would it be of benefit to you? Because what we do know is that people are very nervous, aren't they? Because of all the emotions involved in clutter. And, you know, we've talked about those emotions many, many times. People are embarrassed. People feel guilty. People feel ashamed. And of course, if you enlist a professional organizer to help in your home, you still feel those emotions, even though that person is a professional. And so sometimes it's hard for people to make that mental leap into getting a professional organizer into their home, isn't it, Ingrid?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, we are wearing many hats, don't we, Leslie? Because yes, we are very much involved in the professional organizing industry, but we are both professional organizers ourselves as well. And on top of that, we have a team of people that work with us, and we run the Declutter Hub. So lots of things that are happening. I mean, we just love professional organizing. I mean, that's the bottom line of it, don't we, Leslie? We just love our industry. We love what we do. We get great satisfaction in helping other people. But in the end, it's all about the emotions involved with decluttering and how you deal with that, both as a professional organizer and as a client.
Yeah, exactly. So just to explain a little bit, in case people have not picked this up over the years. So Ingrid runs a business called Organise Your House in Southeast London. So she covers most of Southeast London with her team of people. And I run the Clutter Fairy up in Manchester, and I cover most of the Northwest and into Wales. And so we cover quite big geographical areas. Obviously, Ingrid's is much smaller because it's in London and we travel a little bit further. And we've both been doing this for about 10, 11 years. And so we started in the professional organising world when it was very little known, wasn't it? Nobody really knew about it. So APDO as an association has been around for 15, 16 years now, something like that. And so the professional organising world in the UK has been around that long. It's been around even longer in the United States in particular, I think 20 plus years, maybe even a little bit longer than that. But it's still a very, very niche industry and one that not a lot of people know about. So the amount of times we hear, oh, is it actually a thing? Like, can you actually get someone to come into your house and help you to declutter? How does that work? Like, how are you going to know what stuff to throw away? And all these questions come up, don't they? And we have to, as professional organisers, we need to sort of break through those barriers and explain the process that we use when we work with people one-to-one in their home. And because you know us through the Declutter Hub, we wanted to sort of explain a little bit about how we think it's different, didn't we, as well? Because obviously we do have our two hats on. So what do we prefer doing? What do we think would be better for you? What do we think would work best for you? What have we learnt about the two different types of roles that we fulfill in the decluttering world? So we thought it might be interesting to talk about it, didn't we?
Yes, actually, now you're kind of saying all of this, Leslie. I'm like, oh, we need to get cracking because we actually have quite a lot to tell about this, don't we? And I think because we have both our kind of Declutter Hub and our own businesses are so aligned, we kind of forget that they're actually quite different things. And we love both equally as much, don't we? I mean, it's not, I still love working with clients. I love helping, having my team there ready to help clients in their homes. But of course, the Declutter Hub is now a big part of my working week as well. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And I hope that comes across in the podcast that we do and into our membership. So, but they are different things, but of course they overlap.
Yeah, they do. It's interesting because we obviously have our own Facebook group with lots of people chatting about different things to do with decluttering. There are other decluttering groups out there as well. And quite often we'll see posts where somebody gets very excited because they have enlisted the help of a professional organizer to work with them one-to-one in their home. And people are very interested because like I mentioned before, is that even a thing? How is that going to work? There's a nervousness. So Ingrid, let's talk about how it actually works and what somebody can expect to pay. A good question, because people will want to know whether it's something that's affordable, because it's certainly something that's not affordable for everybody, and what that might look like in terms of what can expect that professional organizer to do for you.
You know what? I think what's interesting, Leslie, I think what a lot of people think is that the first thing we do is pull up in their drive with a skip, and that without even asking, we start to chuck stuff away, because that's a little bit what you see on television, don't we? And of course, that makes great television, but we know from real life that there's a lot more to it. And to be honest with you, Leslie, in the 10 or 11 years I've done this, I don't think I've ever ordered a skip. So just to calm everybody down, we just first come in and say hello and have a cup of tea, right? We're like, okay, right. How is this going to look? Where are we going to start? And of course, we've already had a phone conversation or a Zoom conversation with the client before we make that first welcome and go through the front door of somebody's house. So they've talked to us before, they've seen us before. And then we go in and then we start wherever in the house we've agreed we were going to get started. And I always myself have a good idea of, I ask where the client wants to get started, but I also look at the house as a whole and I advise where I think we could or should get started. A lot of times these align, but sometimes I have to steer the client to another room and say, we need to do this room first or this area first before we can go to the room that you really want doing, because you have to create space in a house.
Yeah. And so in the same way that when we're working in the Declutter Hub, there's different things, isn't there? And it'll come as no surprise that emotions and discussing the emotions that you're feeling and the habits that are holding you back from making decisions forms a huge part of what we're doing. So in the same way that we do here, we focus heavily on the emotions and not necessarily on the stuff. Now, when we are working with you one-to-one, we probably have a bigger throughput of stuff, if that makes sense, because we can encourage you on a one-to-one basis to make those decisions, and we can discuss every single decision that you make with you, and we can discuss every single decision as it's happening. So that's probably the difference, isn't it? In the Declutter Hub, in the podcast, in the free content that we put out there, in the Facebook group, the kind of things that we talk about are to encourage you to come to that decision on your own, off your own steam, if that makes sense. We take you down a certain path to make you think about it. But when we're working with you one-to-one, we are almost empowering you to make a decision there and then, if that makes sense. If you're not ready to make that decision, we're not going to force you. And of course, as we do here, if we're working one-to-one with somebody and they're not ready, we'll just leave that and come back to it in phase 2, in the next round, whatever. Don't make a decision prematurely. So a professional organiser's role is to help you to get to that decision, to empower you to make that decision and to guide you. It is not to take over the process. And that's really, really important, because sometimes what we see when we see posts about, quite often when we see these posts that we've mentioned on Facebook groups and people, I had a professional organiser into my house, or I'm very excited. And of course, there are going to be people who've had good experiences of that and people who've had bad experiences of that. And sometimes it's about, you can see from the post that somebody has come in and tried to prescribe their own methodology of the way they want to do something onto somebody who's not ready for that. And so there is definitely not a one size fits all when it comes to working with a client. Every client is different. Every emotion is different. The makeup of the house is different. And so a professional organizer should not come to your house and dictate how something is done. Now, as Ingrid has said, we might try and guide you because we know that there are more efficient ways of doing things. But that's why you have brought in a professional. You brought in a professional for our advice to guide you in the right direction, but we're not there to take over that process for you. And that's really, really important for you to know about the system itself and to think about when you're thinking about the right professional organizer for you.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, Leslie, I think for me, it's really important that I work with my clients. So if somebody rings me and says, Ingrid, I'm going to go away for the day, can you just sort out my cupboard? I'm like, well, that's not for me. What I love most is working with the client and together figure out how can we make this wardrobe work. What do they wear? What do they love? What do they feel good in? What makes sense to keep? And not be there by myself, just making sure it all goes on pretty hangers and gets color coordinated. I think for me, that's not why I became a professional organizer. Yes, I love hanging clothes on a nice hanger. Yes, I love folding a t-shirt really nicely and put it nicely away in a cupboard. But for me, it's all about, can the client maintain this system that we're together creating? Does it make sense to them? Does the order in how we put stuff back in the cupboards, does it work for them? Will they find an item where we together decide we're going to put it? Because a lot of times I get asked, well, Ingrid, can you just copy your house into my house and then I'm going to be organized because you're a very organized person? And I'm like, yes and no, because we need to figure out where you are going to look for something to make sure that the decluttering and organizing sticks. And of course, when you work with us or, with you as the declutter or me as Organize Your House, of course, we get a lot done because we're used to helping and supporting and talking about it and doing the work while we chat and making good decisions. So we get a lot done in 4 to 5 hours. While by yourself, it's probably going to take you longer than that because you've got a lot more thinking to do by yourself. While, of course, when we're there, we can chat to you about items and we can kind of help you go and make lots of suggestions and say, how about if we put this here? How do you feel about if we do it this way? Have you ever thought about swapping these two areas around and all of those things?
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we've talked about the fact that it's going to be very emotionally led. It has to be client led. That's the important thing. So a big red flag for me would be if a professional organizer comes into your home and says, oh, you can go out, it's fine. We're going to just do all this for you. Because one of the big things that we do is we educate as we're working with you. So as Ingrid says, we're asking about, have you thought about doing this a different way? Can we put this cupboard in a different place? All of those things. And that has to be done together because we have to understand your lifestyle, your family, the way things fit together. And we can't do that if you've gone out for the day. And so if a professional organizer rings you and said, oh, no problem, we will come, we'll do it all for you. That's a big red flag. You have to be involved in the process. Even if you say, you know what, I don't want to get rid of anything. I just want everything organized. Very nice to have things neatly organized, but we have to understand what your life looks like and whether or not you can maintain that system. It's so important. So there's so many different components to being a professional organizer. But what would you say, Ingrid, then, is the real skill? So what is a client actually paying for when they get you in their house? What's the big skill that you can offer?
Well, I think it's a combination, Leslie. I think it's about understanding people and listening to people and hearing what they are saying. I can look at a client's posture and their face and the way their face lights up when they're really happy about something. I can read through the lines about what's important. I can manage the system when we're working together and make those changes along the way and go, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I think that's what you get when you do over 1,000 decluttering jobs over 10 years time. You've seen lots of different ways houses are set up. And we, I think, have the skill to go down to the heart of the matter. What's really going on here? And can we then talk about, and then we change the client's mindset when we're working with them. We talk about how does stuff come in? How does stuff leave? How does your day work? How does your week work? What's important to you? Is it the space? Is it the stuff? How do you shop? I mean, all of those things together, it's like a puzzle that has pieces that need to fit together.
Exactly. So do you think then that there is a typical type of client that comes to you for a one-to-one session?
Oh, that's quite a difficult question. I don't think so. I've worked with many different people. I mean, I've mainly worked with women, but I have also worked with some men, and they're very different in their approach. They're much more, I think, like, yeah, can go, can go, can go. Da, 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 da. They're quick in their decision making. Well, a lot of women like to talk things through a little bit, and this way get clarity in their own minds what's important. But I've worked with people in one bedroom houses and that had to really struggle for space and be really creative with the space they had to larger properties. I've worked with people who are by themselves and only have their own stuff to deal with. I've worked with families with 2 or 3 children. So it really depends. But I think what's important for me is that I work with clients who want to make that change and are ready to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree, Ingrid. The spectrum of people that we work with is the same as the spectrum of people that we get in our Facebook group, listening to our podcasts, joining our membership. It's exactly the same. People have got different levels of tolerance of clutter, different levels of overwhelm, different stories that bring them to the place that they are. Let's call them stories, things that have gone on in the past. And different motivations for wanting to change. And so the spectrum is exactly the same. And the outcome can be very similar as well. For some people we work with, people sort of tend to fall into different categories, don't they? And quite often there are people who generally are fairly organized, but something has taken over and they're like, you know what, I just need to get my garage done. Everything else is fine in the house, no problem. There's just one area that's a real stumbling block. It might be paperwork, it might be a garage, it might be a loft, it might be a home office, that kind of thing. And so it's a kind of short, sharp, please come in, sort me out, help me do it, because it's just never coming to the top of my to-do list because I've always got lots of other things that I need to do. So it's more about diarising it and scheduling it. The decision making is quite straightforward. We're just there to move the project along and to make it happen. Do you think that's fair, Ingrid?
Yeah.
So people are in that camp as well. And it can be, that's the perfect time to get a professional organizer in if you want a quick fix to something that you are not really struggling with emotionally, that's a long-term fix. Generally you're okay, but you've got this one thing that's a real problem to you and you need to fix it quickly. So one-to-one is absolutely fantastic in that way. If you have a disability, if you really struggle, if you've got fibromyalgia, ME, anything that's going to make you struggle from an energy perspective, a one-to-one organizer is a fantastic solution because it gets things fixed, and you struggle to devote the time and energy that is required with decluttering. So again, a one-to-one session is really useful in that situation. We have a lot of people with conditions, medical conditions, that really make them struggle, and we've worked with them for years and years and years, and so that tends to be something that we do on an ongoing basis. And so a lot of people, when they first come into professional organising, think that well, you're not really doing your job well if you don't, you do a few sessions and then it should be done because you should have taught the client what they need to know, and then it's all good and they should never slip back. But life's not like that, is it, Ingrid? There are so many different things that people have to deal with that get in the way of us doing what we want to do, and a professional organizer can fix that. I think it's fair to say we become friends with our clients for the most part, don't we? We definitely feel a closeness to the client because we are delving into the innermost workings of people's minds and people's families and people's homes. And that's a very personal thing, which I absolutely love. And obviously right at the other end of the spectrum, we've got people who have had serious trauma in their lives, and it's going to take quite some time to get through that. And that may manifest itself in hoarding disorder. And then, of course, we also work with people who are completely overwhelmed with clutter and just don't know where to start, because physically it's very, very difficult. Logistically, it's very difficult. And we work with that kind of clients as well. And lots of different shades of grey in between, isn't there, Ingrid, as well? So I think the spectrum is huge. What we offer to people is huge, but mostly we're there to guide, to offer support, to offer motivation, and to educate people how to do it on your own after we have left, if that's possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of my clients that I really enjoy working with, I helped her declutter her house, and now she just wants to maintain it. And she's like, Ingrid, I just love it when you come around because I schedule it in my diary. I've got an Ingrid day. You come around, we'll tackle a certain area in the house because I don't want to slide back. And it's just much more fun when you're around. We have a nice chat. We put the worlds to right. We talk about lots of different things. And you get to know these clients over the years, and it's just wonderful. And I see her a couple of times per year, and everybody's always like, oh, your house looks so nice. She's like, yep, my professional organizer has been around to help me. And for her, that really helps her because she does not want to go back to the cluttered rooms that we started with many years ago. And now I just bop in every once in a while. We have a lovely day. We work together, have a nice chat, have a nice laugh. She's happy. I'm happy. And it's just really great that I can maintain those relationships. And she feels really good about her house. So many different clients, so many different situations. And I think that what makes our job so interesting, Leslie,
Of
and why
course.
I love it so much.
Yeah, exactly. We absolutely love it. Just because it's, we find out about jobs that we never knew existed and things that people do. It's so fascinating because we love people and we love emotions. And so that's why we love the job that we do. And to be able to make a huge difference to somebody in a few short hours is such a privilege to us.
Yeah.
So Ingrid, so we talked about, I think we made it clear that we love our job and we love our clients and what one can expect from a professional organizer that comes into your home.
Mhm.
So be really careful. If you are thinking about hiring a professional organizer, really think that through. Make sure you have that consultation. Make sure that's not somebody that says, oh yeah, I'm going to come and do it for you, because that's not going to work. Do you know what I mean? Make sure this person feels like the right fit for you. That's the most important thing. So don't just choose one unless you have that gut feeling immediately, shop around, talk to a few different people who sounds like the best fit for you. Increasingly, it depends on where you are really in the world. There might not be that many options where you are if you're a little bit more remote, but if you're more urban, then there probably will be choices around as to who you can use. Now, some professional organizers definitely have a niche or a niche, as American friends say, which means that they specialize a little bit more. Now, Ingrid and I think it's fair to say, are more all-rounders, and so we do most things. So we don't have a specific niche that we work within, but you might get somebody who's more business focused. If you have an office at home, you might get somebody who's more time management and productivity focused. You might get somebody who's more hoarding focused, or ADHD, or chronic disorganization. So the kind of the more specifics of decluttering world, those kind of things can be dealt with by some professional organizers. So if that's something that you feel, yeah, I'd like an organizer that understands fully my ADHD, then go and seek that out, because it will be out there. That doesn't mean to say that a standard professional organizer can't do that and won't have worked with people with ADHD. Ingrid and I work with people with ADHD as an example all the time as well, but there are people who specialize in that as well. So we've talked about our life as professional organisers, and obviously 2 years ago we decided to break out from our one-to-one clients and bring our services to more people with the Declutter Hub. So What did we think when we first started that we could bring, that we were going to be able to bring what we bring one-to-one to a larger group of people? Let's talk about our journey, because it's been really interesting, hasn't it, with the Declutter Hub?
You know what, Leslie? I think, to be honest with you, I think we just wanted to keep working together. We had such a good time on the board of Abdo. We really enjoyed working together. I think we just thought, let's just keep hanging out. Let's think of something. And it's just been wonderful, really, hasn't it? I mean, I think the thing is, we both were like, there are so many people who want and would love help. You're in Manchester, I'm in London. We get calls all the time of people who want our help because for some way they connect with us, and then like, oh, but I'm in Scotland, or I'm in Cornwall, or I'm in the US, or I'm somewhere else, and now I can't work with you. And that's kind of made us think, how can we help more people? We basically kind of thought, let's just try it out, didn't we, Leslie? I don't think we even realized how fabulous and how wonderful our journey would be. If I'm honest, I don't think we kind of thought, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's just keep working.
Ingrid, I'm not sure it's quite that. Yeah, let's just have a go and see how it goes. I think we did go into it with very specific business plan, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're not just...
Yeah, it's definitely evolved, because I think when we first started, we thought that we could put our expertise into an online course, didn't we? Mm-hmm. And very, very quickly, we realized that the big thing that we could bring was ourselves and a sense of community, and to bring sort of lightheartedness to the proceedings. And so that's what we do with our clients. You know, I've said that our clients, many of our clients then consider us to be friends, and it's the same with the Declutter Hub. And I think that's what's evolved. And so it's definitely, it kind of started out with more of a course scenario, and then very quickly we're like, that's not enough. We're not going to be able to give to lots of people en masse then the same as we can give one-to-one if we're not ever present, if that makes sense. And we know from what you guys say that you feel our presence with you. So we get so many emails, don't we, from people who are like, oh, I feel like you stood right next to me or whatever. So that's what we're trying to bring. And that's what's important, because you feel very isolated when you've got clutter, and you feel like you're the only one who's got that problem, don't you? And I think to make that sort of mental leap into feeling like you've got support, if you haven't had that from your family and friends, which is the case for many, many people, it's important to have somebody, you feel you've got somebody with you who understands. And that's what we try and bring, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it, Leslie? The emails we get from our members are like, oh, I just love the courses, but I love it that you're answering my question in the live Q&A. It feels like having tea with a cup of, with tea with friends when we do the live Q&A every other week. It's my favorite evening of the week when I see you guys online. I love it how you keep things real within the membership. It makes us thoroughly happy, doesn't it? You know, I mean, we've just even seen it in the last couple of weeks, Leslie. We did our challenge back in January, and we had so many people who've now said, I know I became a monthly member, but I really want to upgrade to a yearly member because I've now seen how much you offer it. I have seen how much positive progress I'm making. I want to continue that. I want to hang out with you guys a lot longer than the original month I had planned. And can I please upgrade to a yearly membership? And we're like, yes, come in.
And I think that's a really interesting point as well, Ingrid. I mean, yes, it's a lot of fun. That's what we like, but we do like people to make progress. And so the one thing I've learned, talk about this of our business journey then so far, and we're really at the very early stages of it at the moment, but the light bulbs have really gone on for us, haven't they, in the last 6 months? Because I think what we find, which is slightly different to one-to-one, is the mindset change when you are doing it yourself is a little bit more permanent. So it's not to say that you can't get that with a one-to-one service, you absolutely can, but you're having somebody to come in and try and help you through that process, where when you're working with a Declutter Hub, although you feel like you're in a community of like-minded people, ultimately the buck stops with you. You're the one that's got to get yourself up in the morning and say, today I am going to do my spice cupboard or whatever it is. There's no Ingrid and Leslie saying, come on, let's do your spices. Do you know what I mean? Yes, we are kind of subliminally, but we're not right next to you making you do it. Not that we make people do that, but it's very different. And so I think the commitment to the journey within the Declutter Hub and towards that mindset change is the thing that I think in a membership scenario is very different to working with somebody one-to-one. We definitely see the mindset shifts with our one-to-one clients as well, but it's kind of different. And to a large degree, there's still that kind of, I wouldn't say reliance on us, but there's still that kind of, we want you to come in once a year to maintain it. And we're the same as the person that cleans the gutters. Well, no, we're not the gutter cleaning. That was a very bad thing to say. But, you know, in terms of you get your gutters cleaned once a year, you get your windows done, however often you do it, and you get your professional organiser in to come and maintain your house every year. But of course, that involves quite a high level of disposable income to allow it. And it's not something that a lot of people can afford.
Well, yes, it is, Leslie. And I'm just thinking, indeed, if you hire us, or you or me, doesn't matter who the two of us, if you hire us 4 to 5 hours, that will cost roughly about the same as becoming a yearly member in our membership. So there's a different price bracket, you know, on this. You get either yearly support, but you have to do more of the work yourself, or you get me or you next to you for 4 or 5 hours, and it will about cost the same.
Yeah. And of course, and there are so many people, Ingrid, as we talked about right at the beginning, that are nervous to get somebody into their home because of the kind of embarrassment and guilt. And you know, and that's not right. And we're definitely here to say, don't worry about that kind of thing with a one-to-one professional organizer, because we have a job because you have clutter. And so if you didn't have clutter, we don't have a job. And so for a lot of people, like, oh yes, but you still, you know, so we are far from going to judge you because we have our business because you exist and your clutter exists, if that makes sense. And I know I've said that to a lot of people and they're like, oh yeah, of course, you know. So, but you can't change the habit of a lifetime if you felt that embarrassment and shame. And if you've been judged all your life, it's very hard then for you to get out of that mindset, you know, and taking that leap of faith, which it really is for a lot of people. You know, we see it with the emails that we get from on a one-to-one basis, don't we? People are like, oh, you know, this is so hard for me. I've sat there on your number for 6 months and I've just finally plucked up the courage to call. So, of course, if you become a member, you don't have to go through that because no one's going to come into your house and you can go through it alone. And maybe at some point you think, you know what, I am ready to get a professional organizer in to sort of top that up, or to, you know, to really tackle something that I'm finding really difficult. So the two could work very nicely hand in hand. And of course, we do have people that we work with on a one-to-one basis that are also in our membership as well, you know, to keep things ticking along, really important to keep that momentum going. So I think it's super interesting. We love it. We could sit here and talk about this for another hour, couldn't we? Because we love the job that we do, whether that's one-to-one or whether it's in our membership. It's really important for us. But the most important thing is that we don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed and to suffer with clutter anymore. And there is a way out, isn't there? There is a way out, but a lot of people need to be supported through that.
Yes, so let me put you on the spot here, then, Leslie. Which one is better, a one-to-one or the membership? What's our advice? What do you think people should choose if they have to choose? Ooh.
I don't think there's actually an answer to that, because I think there are so many things that come into play, because I think finance plays a big part in that. It really does. You know, so do I think that you get value for money out of a one-to-one session with a professional organizer? Absolutely. Do I think you get incredible value from being a Declutter Hub member? Yes, I do. I think you probably, pound for pound, if I'm being honest, you probably get more value out of a Declutter membership than you would from a one-to-one session, because there's the longevity with that and there's a complete mindset shift, because it's going to take you more than one session with a one-to-one person to get to the same place. So pound for pound, if you've only got £200 to spend it in the Declutter Hub membership. Is that the right answer, Ingrid?
So, okay, let me then say, Which one do you love more, working one-to-one or being in the Declutter Hub membership? Oh, I'm really throwing you in front of the lines here, Emma, not Leslie.
I love both of them,
Mhm.
but I am very excited by the Declutter Hub membership because it's quite new, it's quite fresh. It keeps us on our toes. So I think this is more personal than it is anything else. I think it's about us being excited by the work that we do and by the way that the business is developing, because our Clutter Fairy business and your Organise Your House business tick along nicely, don't they? We have worked out what works. And so I'm not saying we don't develop those businesses, but because we absolutely do, but they're kind of solid and stable, whereas the Declutter Hub is growing. And that's the interesting thing I think about that. So on a personal level, I love doing the Declutter Hub work because it's getting to more people. I love the podcasting. We, rather than having, one person that we help, we get several emails a day, which is nice. And so it's nice to be able to do that on a larger scale than we had done before.
Mm-hmm.
But do I prefer one over the other in terms of working? No, I love them both equally. And they're both really relevant and necessary for the other to work. They work hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah. I agree completely with you, Leslie. I could not choose, even if I wanted to. I really enjoy equally as much. I love working with my clients, but I definitely love seeing all the progress that's being made by the members in the Declutter Hub and seeing all the journeys unfold and their stories being told and the mindset changes that are happening. It's just absolutely wonderful to see. So I think that's it for this episode, isn't it, Leslie? Is there anything else we need to add?
I think we want to just do a big shout out for Apto and Spring Clearing Week again. So we are towards the tail end of Spring Clearing Week. I think there's a couple more days to go. But if you want some additional resources, the focus this week is very much about where to offload your decluttered things. So donation, repurposing, that kind of thing. So if that's something you're really, really interested in, then do check out APDO, the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers. You'll find them on Facebook, Twitter. You can sign up for their mailing list as well. And you can search for the hashtag Spring Clearing Week and you will find lots of useful information within APDO.
Yes, and we wanted to do a special shout out to all the professional organizers that we know are listening to this podcast worldwide. Thank you all for your support and for listening as well. So that's it for this episode. Thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to be here. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast. If you want more handy tips and advice from Leslie now, you can find us in lots of places, and do check out our Facebook group, the Declutter Hub community with Leslie and Ingrid. We would love to see you there. Now, if you've been listening and thinking, you know what, this membership sounds so interesting. I would love to know more. I want to know how Leslie and Ingrid can help me, because I am already in the Facebook group. I'm listening to the podcast, but I need more help with the clutter in my house. Do have a look at members.declutterhub.com. It's members.declutterhub.com, and you can read how we can help you. You can join in our live Q&As. We can post with you in the forum. We have all our courses and quick wins. There is so much in our membership. So do have a look on members.declutterhub.com. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I am actually in the UK. I'm in Manchester. I am in Southeast London. I need to have Ingrid and Leslie in my house right now. It needs to happen, or I need to have one of their team in my house because I want to tackle that clutter. Check us out on clutterfairy.co.uk or organiseyourhouse.co.uk, and you will be able to talk with us in person. So
that's exciting, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, we do love it. So I'm just feeling all giddy. The sun is shining today, Leslie. I'm feeling positive, and we just thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.